Good morning and welcome to Ward Goodman Hub Live, WG Hub Live here on Friday. As part of our series on strategies for 2021, we're focusing on the small owner-managed business and how some simple focus can move you forward this year. To help us navigate this subject, I'm delighted to welcome two experts in this field who will be presenting today. We've got Mr. Mark Page, experienced, successful business coach, and also our very own Ward Goodman's Roger Duckworth, Director and Business Advisor. We're also very pleased to welcome Lawrence Wright, business owner from BBD Architects, who's able to join us on the panel today to offer some practical issues, bit of insight, commentary on how SMEs are feeling about the current situation and how he's used his knowledge of his numbers to gain business advantage, which is what this is about today. So good morning, Lawrence, and thanks for joining us. Good morning, Mark. Thank you for being here today. And of course, Rog, we look forward to hearing from you. So a very warm welcome to all our regulars on the show and to those joining our audience for the first time. Normal WG Hub Live rules apply. Please ask your questions using the Q&A possible, and feel free to use the chat box if you need to. So without further delay, I believe Mark's kicking us off today. So welcome, Mark, and let's get started.
Fantastic. Thanks very much, Ian. Right. So for those who don't know me, if it's okay, I'll just give you the very brief of who on earth this person talking to you today is. Name's Mark Page, been in business quite a long time now, been in there for about 25, 30 years. But the majority of it was working within the Stanley Black & Decker organization, in which time I was the UK sales and marketing director, and had a really good run in there, very successful. But about 4 years ago, I realized I was probably done. I'd worked a lot of hours and I decided there's another chapter in my book. And what I did is I was contacted by an ex-managing director of Stanley, and he said, come and have a chat with me. So I did. And when I was there, I said to him, just out of interest, over the last 15, 20 years, people keep moving me around different organizations, and it was quite frustrating. And he said, well, that's because you were Mr. Fix-It. So I said, right, that's really interesting. Didn't know that. Would have been nice to know it at the time. So with that, I started to realize perhaps I could help businesses. And then I helped him with 2 or 3 projects on 2 or 3 companies on projects I knew nothing about the product. And then I realized while I was at Stanley, the fastest businesses I grew were the ones I didn't know the product. So I thought there may be something in that. And so 4 years ago, I set up my coaching practice, and here we are. We're helping as many business owners as possible leverage from many of the lessons I've learned, often the hard way. So I'm really comfortable to share some of those. Today, we're talking about a subject passionate to my heart, which is frankly knowing your numbers. And it's a really important one. And Roger and I are completely aligned on this. And I'm just going to sort of walk you through why it's important, because once you get your head around it, it actually starts to make life easier. But I'm going to start, if you can see, with what I call the base of any business. If the base of any of these items is a little bit wrong, we tend to have some troubles. And I'm going to start with this one of a plan, because if I haven't got a plan, well, how do I know what I'm going to do? So there's no point in knowing a number if I don't know what the number's got to be. So I've got to start off by knowing what is the number that I'm trying to achieve. You wouldn't go and get a mortgage out and turn up to somebody and go, I'd like a mortgage. How much for? I have no idea how much for. When are you going to pay it off? 5 years, 10 years, 25? I haven't a clue. You got to start with understanding some form of number. And the reason I say that is this. They did a survey. 70% of business owners have no plan. They're just getting on with reality. 27% have a verbal plan. They could probably give me some form of verbal plan of what they're trying to achieve. And 3% have got an absolute nailed on written plan, almost like a roadmap. If they follow it, they'll get there. But what they found was 91% of the profit went to those guys. So what we're trying to do is, we like profit, but if we haven't got a plan, how can we know what to get? So what I then do with my clients is I flip it. I might go, give me 10 years ahead, guys. What does it look like? What are we aiming for? Because if I don't know what I'm aiming for, how can I hit it? If you had a dartboard with no numbers on it, how can you hit a number if there's no numbers? So I always start with the vision, and then I might go 3 to 5 years, team. What are we looking at? Bit more numbers then. And then I might go 12 to 18 months. Guess what? I want some numbers then. 90 days, real load of detail. And then that's this week. And actually, this is now. This is when all this comes and is now. And so what I tend to do is I plan down from there. Now, my experience with most business owners is they live somewhere around about here, 30 to 60 days. And I call it do the work. They're just doing the work. I've got some orders, do it, get it invoiced. But if you have got this absolutely lined out and you're happy with that, then the job is to deliver up. And I describe it as the only thing on your watch face that you see that moves is the second hand. But if the second hand is connected to the minute hand, which is connected to the hour hand, which is connected to the date, it will work. But obviously, I find a lot of people say to me, "Well, I've got a second hand on my watch," and I tend to say, "But it's just a stopwatch. It's 60 seconds. Repeat, 60 seconds. So it's not going up there. So if I don't know what number I'm trying to hit, how can I hit it? So the first thing always is work out the number, and that is what I did regularly in business, is work out the number. I then got time. So we then got to work out how many hours. Guess what? Hours is a number as well. How many hours am I going to work in order to do that? So if I'm working 50, 60 hours a week, yet I want to go and double my business, am I going to go and work 80, 90 hours if I'm going to double the business? So if we can't work out what numbers we're aiming for, we're going to have a little bit of a complication. And so many business owners I speak to are absolutely working flat out. They are working too many hours. And for me, these two are linked, because if you don't work out what the plan is, then you'll run out of time, and you need to build in what personal time you want into that plan. Otherwise, your business will dominate you and you will end up just working lots of time. So your true value that we're going to get from our finances, what's the hourly rate that I'm worth as I work? So if I'm going to go and be a £100,000 business and I'm working 80 hours a week, that's going to be a challenge. So the trick is to work out how to leverage those hours. I can give you an example. In my business career, one time I was running 6 businesses at the same time. Now, each one of those businesses 10 years beforehand all had a board of directors. Every single one had their own PA, every single one. I ran all of those without a PA, and I had to, because that was the only way we could make it work. So I had to constantly redo my time, because time is a number, in order to achieve the results. The next one we've got here is delivery. If I can't deliver what I'm wanting to do, then I can't have the number. It's all very well saying, well, I've sold it all, but if I can't deliver, if I can't get it through the books each month, if I haven't got the people, then I'm probably going to struggle to do that. So delivery is a massive one. Now, I don't know exactly who's with us today, but often it's probably here, because quite often the business owner's got too much in his head and it's all going through him, and he often is the solution and the problem. So we need to get the delivery through that element there. But then we get to the finance bit, which Roger will speak about in a moment. And this is actually the catch-all of everything, because all businesses ultimately will survive and die in this box here. Jamie Oliver's restaurants a few years ago went pop. They didn't run out of recipes. They ran out of money. Carillion, they are a very big organization. They didn't run out of projects. They had too many projects. They ran out of money. So they died within this box. And so I'm going to hand over to Roger for a bit, because this is a really, really important box. And I fully support everything that Roger does with his clients on this one. Over to you, Roger.
Thank you, Mark. I'm just going to quickly share my screen with everybody. Just bear with me for a quick second. There we go. So what I'm going to talk about today, I'm going to start off with a little bit about me. So I've had over 30 years of advising small business owners, and that's more years than I care to mention, really. And in that time, all of the clients that I've come across, and Ian and I were talking about this just yesterday, and it's probably in the thousands of clients over this time, they've all had a problem which required our help, and we actually solved the problem. And I currently lead the business advisory services team at Ward Goodman, and that encompasses the new range of digital accounting services that we offer, business and personal tax services, and payroll services. And across all of the time that I've been working as an accountant, like Mark alluded to at the start, I've sort of become quite astonished at the number of business owners that don't know their numbers. And quite a lot of them either don't have a proper system that they can operate, but some of them even have a computerized system and they still don't know their numbers. They just think it's a way of giving us the records to do for them. And I'm going to try and talk to you today a little bit about how I can try and change your mindset about why it's important and how broadly we can help you do that. And so if I just move quite quickly along. So knowing your numbers is important because, so I've got 4 reasons there broadly. It helps you understand your business. And what I mean by that is that it helps you understand the dynamics between what you sell, how much it costs for you to sell, and your expenses. And then it helps you understand the dynamic between all of those things. And it also helps you plan your business. Okay, so one of the questions we get asked, well, a range of questions we get asked is, can I, should I, if I? So can I take on a new member of staff? If I buy this, spend this money, what's the impact? And should I buy a van? Should I buy an asset? Should I finance it or should I pay it out of my cash? That's the sort of questions we get asked, not necessarily every day, but certainly almost every week. And so this is why it's important. You can understand the impact of costs on your business. So if you're selling a range of products or services and then you spend money on your overheads and different expenses and how much it costs you to produce those goods or services, you understand the impact of what you're selling and how much it's going to cost you to sell. And if you have all of those things in order and you understand those, you can make educated decisions about how you can move your business forward. If you don't have those things in place, you're sort of running a bit blind. And so you make decisions based on your gut feel, and that might not necessarily be the right thing. You might find yourself moving towards a black hole of expenditure or something like that. So if I just nudge us along again. So what numbers should you know? Well, I think sales and direct costs are very important because obviously sales, you know how much you're making, you know what you're selling. The direct cost is how much has it costed me to make that sale. Obviously the gross profit is the result of those 2 items. And that is the amount of money you can carry forward to cover your overheads or expenses. And your overheads and expenses are important because obviously if you're spending money on marketing, premises, rates, motor expenses, all sorts of different things like that, that leads you to your net profit. And that's how much you make. And after tax, that's how much you can pay yourself. And so if you don't really understand that, you sort of might be taking too much money out. You might not be able to pay yourself too much. And that can be a problem. Obviously, on the right-hand side of it, we've got trade debtors, which are people who owe you money, trade creditors, people you owe money to, and cash flow. So obviously, when you sell your products or services and your customers don't necessarily pay you straight away, they owe you money. And the amount of money they owe you is an important number to know because obviously that directly affects your ability to pay your creditors and therefore yourself. And cash flow is really important because obviously those 3 are all correlated together. So you know how much money you've got. And so if you know how much money you've got, you know you can plan for your expenditure in the future. And then there are some indicators that we can look at. And this is where you can start really getting on top of your numbers or smashing your numbers and start to understand where you are in relation to your competition. Because with these sort of percentage margin type ideas here, if you can get hold of some industry specific data, then you can start comparing yourself to your competition. And as long as you're not niched too much, or niche too much, you should be able to quite happily understand that if your gross profit margin, which is basically your gross profit divided by your sales expressed as a percentage, is 25%, and the industry standard is about 40%, you can start understanding things about maybe your pricing, or maybe how you're going about procuring the services that help you sell those products or services. Obviously, your net profit margin is a very interesting thing to know, because obviously the higher your net profit, the better your net profit margin against the industry is correlated to how much you can pay yourself, or how much you can carry forward to invest in the future. Obviously, if you know what your debtors are, then debtor days is a very important thing to know, because that tells you, if you have your trade debtors divided by your sales multiplied by the number of days in a year, then that's how many days on average your customers pay you. And so the higher that is, the longer they're taking to pay you, and so which means that you need to look at your customers and try and get that money in quicker. And I'll come on to how you may be able to do that later. Obviously, the liquidity ratio is important, because that tells you how quickly you can pay your creditors, basically. And the liquidity ratio is sort of like a 2-to-1 basis. That's your current assets, including stock, divided by your liabilities. The higher that ratio is, the easier it will be for you to pay your creditors if you really needed to. And then the quick or acid test ratio is the current assets taking out stock, which is basically your debtors, generally your debtors and your cash balances, divided by your current liabilities. And so that tells you, if I really needed to pay all of my creditors now, could I really do it? How quickly could I do that? And that used to be a 1 or 1.5 to 1 is probably the best ratio for that. So that sounds like a very complicated way of getting, sorry, I'll just have a quick drink. A very complicated way of getting your numbers. And so what I wanted to demonstrate to you now is, how easy is it to do this now? Because obviously we've entered the age of digital accounting, and that has helped business owners get relevant information much more quickly. Now, the example I've put on the screen here is relating to Xero. However, we do help our clients with other softwares like QuickBooks and Sage Business Online. And as I go through, I'll sort of try and say how the different things and different aspects of this can help those other systems. But for now, we're going to use Xero. And it all starts really with a smartphone. Everybody takes pictures, because I see lots of people on Facebook uploading pictures all of the time. So we can all take pictures. And if we can download the HubDoc app, which is free with Xero, that enables us to take pictures of our expense invoices. And then those expense invoices go directly into HubDoc, and you can look in HubDoc and make sure that you code it properly to the right place. And that goes into Xero. And with a bank feed, and you set up your own sales invoicing, and with HubDoc, generally, if you set up the rules properly, 80% of your transactions can automatically be posted into your accounting software. So once all of that is done, we sort of take over, and we use a piece of software called Xavier, which is an analytical piece of software, which helps us ensure that Xero is a single point of truth as your accounting system, so it's correct. So what Xavier does is it passes over your numbers and tells us how accurate it thinks they are. And it picks up things like duplicated invoices, where it thinks that things have gone through twice, or you've got the same supplier going in 2 different places, and it enables you to query whether those are the right things. And once we've done that, we know that broadly the information in Xero is correct. We then review it ourselves anyway, and we then make our own monthly accounting adjustments, which other accountants all tend to do 6 months after year end, when it's really no good. So we do that on a monthly basis. And within Xero, then we print some reports out, and we will send them to you, and we'll spend half an hour to an hour talking to you about them every month. And a new feature which we're running out now is to use a little app called Fluidly, which helps you do a quarterly rolling cash flow. So actually what we'll do is we'll say, these are your numbers, this is how you're doing, and we'll talk about them and talk about the intercorrelation between all sorts of different things that are going on in that month, and how things are looking going forward. and then we'll provide you with a cash flow statement from Fluidly for about 3 months, which enable you to understand how your operating is affecting your cash flow going forward. And it will help us pinpoint whether there are going to be any pinch points in the future. Now, if you don't use Xero, you can use Receipt Bank and auto entry for things like QuickBooks or Sage Business Online. And we can help you with other apps that help us to deliver exactly the same service throughout. So basically, now we've got digital accounting. You can save a lot of time in doing your record keeping and get some very valuable information very quickly. And so the days of business owners, complaining a little bit about how long it takes them to get their information into their system, they're sort of receding quite rapidly with the digital age which we're going into. And I really like this slide. I've used this a lot when I've been doing presentations in the past, because you can now automate almost everything. So from the payment setup with things like iZettle and Stripe, to data collection, which is with Satago, which is actually a piece of software that links in with your Xero and starts reminding your customers as regularly as you'd like with emails to say your invoices are overdue, they're coming up for payment, they're overdue, and that ties in with Go Cardless, and they can pay directly through that. And of course, then we got information capture, which is through auto entry or HubDoc or Receipt Bank, and also trip capture for your mileage. So with trip capture, you can record your mileage as you get in your car. You can turn it on, it calculates the miles for you, and you stop it, and it posts it through trip capture directly into Xero. And then we've got spend control apps like Solido and Approval Max, which help you organize and prioritize your spending. And then there are payment apps which help you pay directly from Xero through to your suppliers. And then we've got payroll. Xero do their own payroll, which links with itself. But in this analysis, BrightPay have made some great strides in improving their software, and that links seamlessly with Xero now. And with reporting, I've already talked about Xero, but there are other apps called like Fathom or Futurely or even Spotlight Reporting that enable us to give you bespoke reporting at a very high level. And of course, with Xero Tax, we can file with Companies House and the HMRC. And so, as you can see, automating everything now can almost give you a lot more time, so you can have a choice. So it gives you a choice. You either spend more time with your family instead of spending the whole weekend doing your records every week, or you can spend a little bit more time on your business and understanding how you can move it forward. It's a very exciting time, really exciting time to be doing this sort of stuff. So then I thought, well, there are some questions that you probably need to ask yourselves, which help you sort of understand whether you're really getting on top of your numbers. So how much in sales did you make in this week or this month? How much did it cost to get the customer? How much did each customer spend with you? How profitable is each customer? And how much do you need to make each month to break even? And then what is your average life for your customer? So obviously with the average life for your customer, if it's a short average life, you need to get new customers into the hopper all of the time to be able to meet your break even point. And then you need to understand how profitable your customer is, so that to make sure that you are making a profit on each one. And so it all sort of ties together really. And then lastly, if we can smash the competition, if we use real-time information, because it gives your business the agility to see results based on facts with a single point of truth in Xero. It helps you avoid problems way before they arise. You can make decisions that give your business the opportunities to grow, helps you grow your business successfully. And then, because we are together as a client and accountant doing the right things, it helps you pay the right amount of tax. And I think that's me. There you go. There's my contact details there. I'm going to pass back. I'd stop sharing and pass back to Mark.
Okay, thank you, Roger. I can tell you, because I speak to lots of businesses, what Roger and the team is massively different to most. Most people do not know their numbers. At best, they might say, my accountant does something, but I don't really know. And everything Roger just said there is gold. And not only that, I love the fact that you guys work with your clients rather than just hand over a bit of information and say, read that, get on with it. So massive difference. So we've now got this finance bit on the bottom, and it is incredibly important. I have just added, before I just go on to a few other numbers, self on this box, because this box is actually one of the main ones. Because when we talk about time, well, there's only 24 hours a day and 7 days a week. So it's actually what I can do in that time. So time, I'm afraid, is an excuse, because you're never going to invent any more than the 24-hour day. So if I don't know enough about my numbers, well, that's down to self. I haven't sat down with my accountant and worked out those areas there. So most of these areas actually come down to the individual. What I would encourage people to do, just while I'm going on to another bit, is stick yourself a number out of 10 for how you are on that. Have I really got that nailed on plan? Am I really in control of those that time, or is time in control of me? Do I have a really good delivery engine that is not bumbling around in my head? It's absolutely processed. My customers get the same every time. We get the same margin every time, the same delivery every time. How competent am I on that? And am I running from there? I'm just going to add the another bit of number here. And this is, guess what? Cash flow number coming in, AKA sales. So I put this number here, unique selling point, because if you don't know what your unique selling point is, you're probably going to be hunting around on price. And I often say to people, why should I buy from you? And you can't mention price and you can't mention service. I tend to get, well, why can't I mention price? Well, unless we want to be the cheapest, why would we bring that one up? Well, I don't want to be the cheapest, so let's put that one aside. Why can't I mention service? Well, two reasons. One, the other three companies said they offer great service as well. Oh, and by the way, I haven't had it, so it's your word. So service on its own. But if we can't create USP, aka value, it's going to give us a problem on price. We're going to end up trading a lot on price, which is going to have an impact down here, because I've got to be able to sell sometimes at a higher value. And I'm just going to show you the principles of some numbers, because it's important. Anytime I had a budget or did a budget, I worked out what I had to do before I started. I knew right down to each person, each salesperson, each manager, what needed to happen in order for me to hit that target. Never left it to I hope. But I use this just as a principle. Leads, conversion equals customers. So 4,000, it's just a generic number. Don't necessarily worry about specifically the number. But if I convert 25% of leads that I've got in a year, I'll get 1,000 customers. If the average sale was £100 and they bought twice from me in a year, I am a £200,000 business. And if the margin was 25%, I'm a £50,000 business. Now, if I could influence some of those numbers, if you have your plan and you said, right, I want to influence some of those numbers, and we're going to go and just add 10%. So if we went and did a marketing campaign, and we picked up on exactly what Roger said of knowing which areas we want to market, which ones are going to give us some leads and some good return of investment. But if I wanted to go and get a few more leads, I'd get 400 in a year. Bear in mind, if that was 400, that would be 44. If I could improve my conversion by 10%, that will help me. I love improving conversion, because actually when it says 25%, it's saying 75% of the time I am wasting my time and money. That's actually what it's saying if you flip it that way. So I had a client one time say, Mark, you need more leads, but his conversion rate was 15%. And I said, well, can we stop blowing all these leads first, because we are hemorrhaging all that time and money that we're going to get there. But if we could improve our sales ability and conversion, and remember, if you can improve that, it's a gift that keeps on giving. But if you could improve that, you get yourself, badly written, another 210 customers. Then we talk about, well, how can I improve my average sale? Well, I've got a few examples after this, but if I could improve my average sale just by 10%, that will make a difference. If I could improve the number of times a client buys from me by 10%, well, they might want more products. They might want a maintenance contract. They might take a service contract up with you. Another touch point, another reason to buy within a year. it will make a difference. And if I did that, I'm going to end up with roughly 296,810, roughly. Then if I improved my efficiency and my profitability just by 10%, if I improve my volume, I will probably make that number just improving that volume. But if I improve my efficiency or I put some prices up, that will have an impact. And if I ended up doing that, I would end up with something like 80,520. It's a few more pounds than that. But the point is, if I know where I am, I could then work some strategies to work out what do I need to do that. So I would embed that in a plan that if I could work some strategies, because the numbers will tell me. And what I love about numbers is they tell you what you need to know, good and bad. They tell you what you need to know, and then you can do something about it. And I just wanted to give you a couple examples of knowing your numbers, good and bad. This is quite often I find when I speak to quite often the trades. I'm afraid they're an easy target. So if you're a trade on this, I apologize for what's about to happen. But often you might sell a job for £1,000 and it's made up of 4 days of £200, let's say, and I make £200. And that's brilliant. Unfortunately, because I've been running around everywhere, I forgot to order the equipment. We only ordered enough. I ordered 1 instead of 10 because I had 1,000 things going on in my head. I didn't organize that guy. So I'll tell you what, I've got to go back tomorrow to finish the job off. The 5th day, I'll send an engineer back just to finish that job off. And then I invoice my £1,000. Brilliant. I've got my £1,000. That's fantastic. But behind the scenes, you've just done it for £0. Behind the scenes, in real terms, you've just done it for £0. And often people go, oh, I don't like the look of that. And then I go, well, actually, you've done it for minus 200 behind the scenes because you should have been earning £200 on another job. So it's like, oh, hang on, I don't like that. And so in real terms, what sometimes happens is this is your sales and marketing. And if I had, let's just say, these are just £40,000 worth of quotes. And it came through here and I converted, let's say 25%, let's say £10,000 worth. And let's just say £4,000 profit. And let's just say that's the sales bit. That's all right. Then it goes through to the ops bit, stroke do. And then it comes down to the finance bit. And that's fine. So it goes from sales through to the finance. And then we bill the finance and everybody's happy. Unfortunately, silently behind the scenes, I've blown a load of profit. And that's why some people are going, don't understand that. I'm working my little knackers off. I'm invoicing stuff, but I don't seem to be getting ahead. So the silent assassin is going there. On the flip side, small changes make big differences. So a restaurant I was working with wouldn't put their price up. So eventually I forced them to put their price up. And I said, could you, out of your 3 restaurants, put your price up by £2 on 50 meals, please? Or £1 on 100 across these 3 restaurants? And they went, yeah, I could do that, but it's only going to make £100 a difference. So that's all right, £100. But if we did that 5 days of a week, by the way, they're open 7, but I said, if you did it 5 days a week, that's £500. And if we did that 47 weeks of a year, but they're open about 52, that's £23,500 worth of profit that you wouldn't have had, and you've had to do no more work. Some of the moral of the story is, in all businesses, sometimes just a small little tweak somewhere has an impact by it goes down. And this was just me working with a business where I actually got them, he wouldn't put his price up until I said, what would you do with £8,500? And he said, really good holiday, really good holiday. So I said, well, put your price up by £2, please. So he did. He's actually gone up another £2. So he's now got that. But I pointed out to him again, if in all of his appointments, if he could do the average appointment, which is somewhere between 20 and 22 minutes, 30 seconds faster coming into the room and 30 seconds faster going out to reception, we get 1 more appointment in the day. 1 more appointment at that £42. If I did it 5 days a week, that's another £210. And if I did it 47 weeks of the year, by the way, he's open 6 days, but I just did it there. So the point suddenly is that 30 seconds walking a bit faster with the conversation and just encouraging people out on a 20 to 25-minute appointment made us an average of that much a year. So I just wanted to emphasize, sometimes don't look for big bullets. There is so much opportunity in the business in the small areas. So I hope that was useful. That's me. I think that's enough on the numbers now. We'll probably pass over for some conversation.
Okay, well, thanks very much. Can you hear me okay? Yeah. Good. Thank you very much, Roger, and of course, Mark, for that presentation on the numbers. Fantastic. I think what we can do now is perhaps, if you don't mind, I've got quite a few questions coming out of that, which perhaps we could just talk about. Mark, in terms of, I just saw that you know, one of your first points was the point of, well, you call it the USP. We talk to lots of businesses about USPs, and what we tend to find is they say, "Oh, yeah, but we're not. You know, we do. Yeah, there's. You know, does another company do anything down the road then?" And they'll say, "Yeah, they do the same sort of thing as us, but you know, but we make sure that we get the work done within 24 hours, for instance, or we deliver within 48 hours, or something like that." So it's more of a point of difference. How do you feel about using point of difference rather than a USP in terms of being unique?
I'm really comfortable with that. I mean, ultimately, it's about articulating a value or a benefit of them buying from you. But if you don't provide a reason for that, why should they pay more? Why should they pay more? So I often say, don't worry about you don't have to invent the wheel. You've heard people say, oh, in food, my signature dish. All they did was take an existing bit of food and they might have put a little bit of basil on it or a little bit of this on it, and it becomes their signature dish. So you don't need to do anything vastly different. I think people are always looking for this, but I don't do anything vastly different. No, just small relevant tweaks that are relevant to somebody is more than enough. So don't overthink it. But on the other hand, if you can't articulate a value, why should I pay more?
No,
I use this as an example. You can buy a pair of jeans for £20 or £200. They're both trousers. They both go on your legs and do up. But one has a value at £200 and one has a value at £20. So they've obviously found a way to articulate that value to that clientele who'll pay more for it.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's an absolutely fair point. I suppose, Rod, there's this point about what it costs to make that difference.
Yeah, I guess so.
So being able to deliver that quickly, or
I think that's that comes in what we were saying earlier, isn't it? You know, if you understand the correlation between the sale and the cost, and then that helps you with your pricing and helps you determine the cost that you can bear. And I think, you know, you're right. You can charge a higher price if you can, you know, have a single point of difference against everybody else. And therefore you could probably put more resources into delivering the service better. But I mean, it's not necessarily about that. It's, you know, it is about how quickly and how you make the customer feel, isn't it? It's the customer experience that gives you the way you do it to give you a USP.
Just picking up on that, Roger, my belief in a lot of the USP is down to how well somebody sells or positions it. On its own, it probably doesn't have a value. It's how it's leveraged in the conversation as a benefit.
Yeah, I guess.
Have you got any points on that, Lawrence? Have you got a view on points of difference in your particular industry?
Yeah, so it does make a difference. Our USP or point of difference is that we specialize in our particular field, which is private residential development and architecture. A lot of RRBA chartered practices work in various sectors. So they might do a bit of housing and a bit of a school and a church, you know, where we chose to specialize in one field and push that expertise out as our USP. And we win so much work. We even win work from some of our competitors because of that. So we can see it working in our own business. Yeah, absolutely.
Do you understand the cost of delivering that specialism? I mean, is there an additional cost, do you think?
In our instance, I'm not sure really, but it's about focus in that one area and making ourselves really good at that one thing that we do. It doesn't mean to say you can't be really good at 2 or 3 things. From my point of view, in my business, you're probably going to work harder to understand each one successfully, or have enough people in there. You might have 3 people in your business, each with their own specialism, I guess.
Mm. Yeah.
So that would demonstrate a cost, wouldn't it? Because then you've got to feed 3 mouths with wages or dividends or however they're being paid to achieve that multiple goal.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, I have to ask you. I'm going to carry on asking you some questions, actually, Lawrence, because Mark was he raised this issue of sort of opportunity cost, if you like. So the guy doing his 4 days, and it then costs him another day, and actually that day isn't then spent on another project which he could have got £200 profit back off. And I guess in your world, you must have quite a lot of projects where you have to choose between. And what do you find about the importance of numbers there?
Choosing between them. I mean, it does occur sometimes in our field. I'm sure it happens in other businesses too, but there are unforeseen events that trip you up along the way, apart from Mark's analogy of, the director forgetting to order enough materials or whatever it is. Sometimes there's an outside force that causes a delay, and you have to react and respond in a way that controls that and looks after that £200 profit, that percentage of profit that otherwise you're going to waste. Yeah, so you might pause, move on to another project so that you're not losing that day, wasting that day, metaphoric day.
Or indeed going back to your customer and asking for, if it's related to customer problems. We obviously see a lot of businesses who don't feel they can go back.
Do you know, that's a really good point. So we have a fixed fee for our clients and our projects, but when I use an exaggerated example, if we were doing a 2-story extension on a house, for example, and then they came along and said, you know what, we really want a basement too, that's extra cost. And we would have to turn around to them and say, well, that's going to change our fee. And it's quite a brave move to get to that point to ask for that extra fee, even when it's blatantly obvious of what's changing. Sometimes, it's not obvious, like a whole nother floor to a building. Sometimes it's fairly subtle, but the amount of work that's involved for us in changing a design, altering, moving a wall on a drawing sounds simple, but it isn't always. And it can cost money. And it's taken quite a lot of effort, confidence, learning to be able to pipe up and say, actually, this is outside of our brief, outside of our fee, and this is what it's going to cost us.
But I guess if you don't know your numbers as you're going along, you might not even realise where you are on a project.
Absolutely. And when you do know your numbers, just flipping that the other way around, you can have the understanding to be able to look at a scheme. You've got a change coming in, and it might be subtle that you would otherwise you'd pick up a fee on, and you might turn around and say, do you know what? We're inside our profit margin. In fact, we're making 30% instead of 20%. We can manage this one, and we might choose to do that change without charging the client, for example, and making them aware that this is still outside of the brief. That's keep it clear, because if they come along with another one next time, they think, oh, this is great. Rubbing their hands together, I can move anything I like. At some point it will catch up, and the next time round we might see that actually we're down to our 20%. I need to charge you for the next change, because otherwise I'm starting to eat into that profit.
Yeah. Well,
I think service creep is a lot of businesses suffer from service creep, where the customer, if you're particularly in the service industry, where you're doing something and the customer says, oh, could you just do this? Mm-hmm. And I think Lawrence is right. Being brave enough to say, look, this change is going to change what we're doing, and we need to increase our prices is essential. But I reckon a lot of business owners don't do it, and I think they probably just embed that in their original quote, and they're probably suffering for that. And it's just about having that little bit of confidence to go, actually, what you do, you're asking me to redo what I'm doing, so actually we need to increase the price. But it's also about being clear on your terms of reference of the contract in the first place.
Yes, exactly. So Roger, yeah, we used to let a lot of stuff slip through the net, so to speak. Yeah, and it took a bit of coaching, thanks to Mark, to help us understand the meaning of that. You know, he was showing us the flip charts that he was doing just there, and showing us, instead of how much profit we could make for that magic holiday, he was showing this is how much you're going to lose by adding an hour to every project across the year, showing it the other way around. And then you go, when you look at the end figure, you know, like the figure on his screen now shows 10 grand. That's a nice holiday, right? But if you flip it, if it's looking at a negative thing where you're giving away time, crikey, I'm losing 10,000 across a year. You start to think about it.
That's interesting there. You found one of the drivers for business, especially for the small owner managed business, where the profit directly relates to something. I love to hear that. You said that 10 grand's the holiday, or for the family or whatever.
Yeah.
But actually, I'm sure Mark finds this quite a lot. He talks to businesses about what their real dreams and aspirations are. Mark.
I have to interpret it quite often, as I said with this one, and prices. What would you do with 8,500? Because I'd already said put your price up, and he was like too scared to do that. So I then had to go and get him to visualize 8.5 grand. 8.5 grand. I could do 2 holidays with the family there. I put £2 on. Just put £2 on, and he started it. And in 9.9 times out of 10. They start reluctantly and never go back. Never go back. And it actually starts a trend of, cool, if I could put £2 on, maybe I can make it 3. And Roger knows this from other clients that we're working with. It just works. It's the owner's mindset almost every time.
Yeah. Once that confidence starts coming in,
yep,
they can go from 5% to 10% quite easily.
Yeah. And
justify it to the client. And the client is, again, yeah, that's brilliant. I'll accept that.
And that's where I kind of have to push them outside their comfort zone to do it, and give them the confidence. Go on, try it.
Yeah. No, I mean, that, and I guess this is part of it. Knowing your numbers gives you that extra confidence. Do you think?
Yeah.
Yeah. Right down to the if I, could I, should I questions we get.
Mm.
Yeah.
I mean, use Mark's analogy there for the holiday. You can use it for anything. Can I have a new employee? I'm thinking of moving premises, or I'm going to do this new product, and then you can do the same sort of thing, tweaking the pricing to make sure that the numbers come out the bottom. I know, but I mean, those are very simple examples, but that's the sort of thing we do all the time.
So start with the answer.
Yeah.
What's the answer, and then walk to the answer.
Start with the end in mind. Yeah.
Yep.
I
mean, obviously we get, much more into perhaps the complexities of some of the numbers and the way they relate to each other. Roger's just talked about their investment, using that extra for investment for the future, doing a new project, doing something else to develop a service. And what we tend to find is a lot of those, a business owner will take that profit, put it into that development, but then actually never readjust their price to reflect that additional ability.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Very regular, Ian. Very regular.
It's sort of like, we call it sunk research and development almost, and obviously there are, in that particular thing, with some of the engineering businesses and other types of industry, there actually is a benefit, financial benefit we can gain from those sort of investments.
Yeah.
But actually what happens is most of that gets hidden, and the business gets better in what it does, but then doesn't reassess its place in the market.
Yeah. Well, it's like Mark alluded to, Ian, 70% of business owners don't have a plan. So 70% of business owners are literally just throwing themselves out there and just trying to run a business. They're not thinking that they're business owners. They're still looking at themselves as workers.
Yeah.
Getting what Mark is trying to do, and what we try to do to a certain extent, is to try and change that mindset so they can start looking at themselves as business owners, and they've got a vehicle that can help them increase their own personal wealth. or help them live their lifestyle they want to live. I mean, there was a few years ago, there's a lot of, I'm just running a lifestyle business. Well, someone who needs £200,000 a year to live has a lifestyle. So I would imagine that most businesses are lifestyle businesses to that extent. And you still need to create sales to create your wealth, create the amount of money you need to live off of.
Ian, it's not uncommon for me to have a conversation similar to this. How's business? Really good. Oh, fantastic. What's really good? Oh, we're booked up for about 6 weeks. Got an order book of 6 weeks. That's brilliant. Where are you going on holiday this year? I haven't necessarily got any holiday plan this year because cash is a little bit tight at the moment. What are you doing on the weekend? Well, I'm working Saturday because I've got all this work. And I sort of reflect, sounds to me like you're just busy.
Yeah.
And, busy is not always profitable. And it's about making that business, make the money in the time to make it worthwhile.
That's right. As Mark has alluded to, that doesn't take very much, does it?
Nope.
An hour.
Yep.
A week.
This isn't related particularly to scale, is it? That you have a business that is turning over £20,000.
It doesn't matter whether you're a £5 business or a £10 million. It's just the compound effect is just the same.
Yeah.
Same ratio.
Yeah. So if you don't mind, I'm just going to pick up on a couple of other points because, obviously being able to listen to what you had to say, I was just picking up on a couple of points. So like you talked about specifically conversion rates. I'm not particularly want to talk about our conversion rate, but it's very high. When somebody comes to Ward Goodman, we do tend to, they tend to get engaged. But I think it's how you actually improve that. Do you have particular steps for that?
Yes. First of all, full-on sales training in order to get conversion rate up, because other than putting your price up, it's the first thing to give the most pound value to your business because you're just going to win more. So it's incredibly important. There are a lot of businesses where people say to me, I'm really good when I'm in front of the customer, or when we get some leads, I'm really good in front of customers. And I tend to call those people spiders. I coined this about 25 years ago to my account managers. And I said, you're spiders. And they said, what do you mean by a spider? I said, you're very good at sitting in the corner in your web. And when it flies in and it gets stuck in the web, you do your little bit and there's a sale. But what happens if somebody closes the window? Well, what happens if you need more to come into your web? You've got to find a way to go out and get it. So conversion's fine, but if your conversion is high and it's not getting you enough, you've got to go and find more other areas. But it is the second most profitable thing you can do with your time other than put your price up. And I measure very hard on it because it's the gift that keeps giving. And also, as I said, it tends to be also related to I can articulate and sell my higher value again at a better price. So I make no apologies for conversion. It's an incredibly effective one because marketing costs money, and if you don't strip the bone, putting it bluntly, you're wasting what you're doing. Can't hear you. You're on mute, Ian.
You're muted.
So it's my mistake. There's some noise in the background here. Lawrence, if you've got anything to add there on sort of, how you might go around sort of practically doing that from a small business point of view.
Yeah, we're working. It's actually something we're working on with Mark at the moment. Our conversion rate. So we've understood it. We've understood the numbers of our conversion rate, and we've looked at what we're doing when we're first meeting those potential clients, and we've adapted our process of our communication. It's a combination of increasing our touch points, the number of times that we're meeting or communicating with the client. And we have found, even in a really short space of time that we've been doing it over the past few months, we've seen a notable increase in our conversion ratio when we just look at those few projects that we've been doing this new system. We've seen a marked improvement. In fact, we won a project a couple of weeks ago that we were not expecting to get. And at the moment. We're just putting it down to the fact that we've changed our process and improved our communication with our clients pre-engagement. And so if that keeps working, we'll just keep doing it. So, and we'll figure out what that higher percentage of conversion ratio is and keep going.
Sales is a process.
Mark.
I was going to say sales is a process. Lawrence alluded to it. It's not a black art of magic. It's a process. If you do the process right, you get the right answer.
So what do you think your next steps are, Lawrence?
Well, the kind of things that we've introduced, so we've put, we always talk to our clients about budget. It's really important. You're building a house, you're building an extension. It's probably the second highest amount of money that you're going to spend short of buying the house in the first place, right? And it's quite often emotive as well. They might have received the money through inheritance or something like that. So it's quite poignant about how they spend it and that they're spending it the right way. And whilst we've always talked about budget, but we've made it a feature, a new feature now that we've added in, and we break down that budget. So we start out with the money that you've got in your pot, whether it's inheritance or a mortgage or a pot of cash, and then we start to break that down and show the client where the value is. VAT, for example, 20%. It's a massive chunk of money, and everyone knows about it, but until they see it on a piece of paper, they go, "Oh yeah, okay," and it just helps them understand. And it's not just about budget that we're talking about with our clients. We give a lot of information and understanding about the process they're about to embark on, and it gives them, I guess, the confidence in us that we do understand the service that we're providing and the sector that we work in, and that we are going to think about them and their money and their family and how they flow around the building and through the design process that we put together and so on. So there's a plethora of it, but the budget thing we've set it up as a spreadsheet and things, and people understand it. I think it's about delivering that understanding and getting them, the client, the customer, comfortable with you. When they're comfortable, then they say yes.
Yeah. No, so yeah. Have you got any comments on budgeting there, Rog?
Well, budgeting is quite important because it gives you something to aim at. So, and that's the thing. It's the part of the planning process that Mark alluded to in the first place. If you can do a budget, it gives you, again, start with the end in mind. So basically, if you can plan your year, how you hope it went, it's got to be a vital tool, really. I mean, budgets are inherently inaccurate anyway, because they're just your thoughts on what you want to do, but it gives you a landing point, a starting point to think, right, how am I going to achieve those sales? And then how can I manage my costs to make sure I meet where I am? I mean, when I've done budgeting before, and I've had some clients that have had a range of products, we put a budget together, but they've often not done the amount in each category they thought, but they've met the budget overall and probably exceeded it because it's given them something to aim for. And then they've gone and surpassed it. Not quite in the same way as they thought, but they've still done it.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right, Roger. The understanding of the sales mix, if you like, because obviously there's lots of businesses with a sales mix, and lots of them actually with what we call a line extension, an extra product that's attached to the main one. So that's where the complexities of budgeting for us come in quite a lot of the time. Is say, well, yeah, but if I sell this, I also sell this thing. But if I don't sell that, I don't sell that at all. And those sort of things can get quite complicated. But even if you've got that main target, it's important, isn't it, Mark?
It's my my main thing is to give you guys a problem by giving some profit that you've got to have a conversation with your client about of what to do with the profit. Those for me are much better conversations for you as accountants, rather than you looking hard at the customer to say, I don't know where we're going to go with that one. So I love to give you guys the profit problem. Yeah.
Well, guys, the more of those problems coming our way, the happier we'll be, I'm sure. So, but we've come to a close today. So thanks very much for joining us. Lawrence, for your insights, your practical point of view in your business. Thank you very much today.
Thanks for having me.
And to Mark, great model there for working through, and I'm sure you'd be happy to take on some more business.
Always happy to do that. Always there to help.
Fantastic. And Rog, thanks ever so much for putting your presentation together today, and I'm sure you'll be crunching those numbers for quite a few while to go this year.
Yes, I will. Yeah, thanks very much, Ian.
So no, fantastic. Thanks, chaps, and we'll look forward to seeing you again sometime in the future. Okay, that's it. That's the end of WG Hub Live. If you want to revisit it, come to wardgoodman.co.uk/hub, and you can listen to it all again.